You know you've made it as a homeowner when your neighbor accuses your Christmas lights of being a threat to the aesthetic integrity of the neighborhood. And no, I didn't live in Times Square. I lived in Pineberry Crest, a quiet cul-de-sac with identical beige houses, neatly trimmed hedges, and one woman who treated every mailbox like it was a national monument. Her name? Laura. And according to Laura, my holiday lights were too much. Too colorful. Too sparkly. Too joyful. But the thing is, I didn't put up those lights for Laura. I put them up for my daughter. For the first time in 3 years, she was home for the holidays after recovering from 2 surgeries and a really brutal round of chemo. All she wanted was a magical Christmas. And I was going to give her one, even if Laura tried to fine me into January. Now if you've never had the privilege of living near a Laura, let me paint you a picture. She wears pastel sweater sets year-round, yes, even in 90-degree heat. Her hair is always neatly curled into what I call judgmental ringlets. And her face? A permanent mix of bless your heart and you're on my list. Laura is the kind of person who believes that HOA bylaws are sacred texts. She once handed out laminated flyers about acceptable doormat fonts. She's the only person I know who color-codes her garden gnome collection and keeps a measuring tape in her fanny pack for bush height enforcement. And if there's one thing she cannot stand, it's joy that isn't approved by the HOA handbook. Every year, I decorate for the holidays. Nothing wild, just some twinkle lights on the porch, lit up reindeer in the yard, maybe a garland around the banister. But this year, I went big. I mean Griswold big. We're talking candy cane arches, LED snowflakes, animated penguins and scarves. I even synced the lights to a holiday playlist that played on a low FM station. It wasn't tacky, it was festive. Elegant, even. And it made my daughter smile. Every evening, she'd sit by the window in her fuzzy red hoodie, watching the lights dance. She'd hum along with the music and sip peppermint cocoa with a smile that lit up the room more than the decorations ever could. But across the street? Laura was frowning so hard it looked like her face might cave in. It started with a knock on my door. 8:07 p.m. Laura time. I opened the door, still holding a half-decorated gingerbread house. She stood there in a powder blue fleece, clipboard in one hand, and a small flashlight in the other, like she was about to perform an inspection on a cruise ship. "Good evening," she said curtly. "May I come in?" I blinked. No?" She sighed, unimpressed. "Fine. I'm here about your light display." "What about it?" "It exceeds the brightness allowance stated in Section 5B of the Pineberry HOA Guidelines." She recited from memory. I blinked again. "There's a brightness allowance?" 15 lumens per linear foot of frontage, she snapped. "Laura," I said slowly, "do you walk around measuring lumens at night?" She didn't blink. "I have a tool." Of course she did. "Well," I said, still holding a gingerbread chimney in one hand, "I think the lights bring joy to the neighborhood." She leaned forward just slightly, squinting at me. "Your joy is disturbing my Labrador." From behind my legs, Biscuit, my orange tabby cat, let out a sarcastic meow like "Here we go again." "Then perhaps your Labrador needs therapy," I said sweetly. "Have a good night, Laura." And I shut the door. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, I found a printed citation taped to my front door, complete with a photo of my yard taken at 9:42 p.m. and a note. "Too flashy. Please remove immediately. Neighborhood Aesthetic Officer." Apparently that was a title she gave herself. I tore it down, shook my head, and texted my friend Susan, who lived 2 houses down. Me, guess who tried to shut down Christmas? Susan, don't tell me. Me, she brought a lumen reader. Susan, OMG, not the light Nazi loudly crying face. By the end of the day, I had 4 anonymous complaints lodged with the HOA. Laura might be the only person in the neighborhood who lives to report people, but she always marks her letters anonymous like we don't know it's written in the same font as her. Christmas cards. Still, I stayed calm. No yelling. No arguing. Just a quiet plan. Because I had something Laura didn't have. A daughter who deserved magic. And an invitation I hadn't told anyone about yet. After that first citation, it was like Laura declared silent war. Every morning, I'd find a new envelope shoved under my doormat or taped to the mailbox. Each one stamped urgent in red and formatted with Laura's trademark blend of legalese and glitter pen. Reindeer figures exceeding height limit. Music audible beyond 40 feet violates Section 3C. Inflatable Santa has an aggressive posture. Yes. Aggressive posture. Santa was waving. I didn't respond. But what I did do was install a security camera, not just to protect myself, but because Laura was now creeping around my yard at night. One clip even caught her measuring the distance between my snowman and the sidewalk, in slippers. At the next HOA meeting, the community center was packed. Folding chairs, lukewarm cider, and a table of ginger snaps. Everyone came, partly because it was the holidays, but mostly because Laura had sent out a mass email titled, "Neighborhood Disturbance, a Threat to Pineberry's Peace." I walked in with a thermos of cocoa and my daughter's old red scarf tied proudly around my neck. Laura was already seated up front, flipping through a binder so thick it needed a seat of its own. The HOA president, Roger, an ex-teacher who clearly regretted this role, cleared his throat. Next topic on the agenda, holiday light regulations. Laura raised her hand so fast she nearly pulled a muscle. Yes, Laura, Roger muttered. She stood up like she was about to deliver a courtroom closing argument. It has come to my attention, she began, that one residence, Lot 14, has chosen to ignore long-standing HOA guidelines and install a holiday display so disruptive, so egregiously loud and bright, that it has caused significant emotional distress to residents and pets alike. Susan whispered behind me, her dog is blind. Laura continued, flipping to a printed screenshot of my yard. As you can see, the colors are excessive. There's synchronized music, inflatable decorations, flashing elements. None of this contributes to the tasteful image our community is known for. I raised my hand. Yes? Roger sighed. Just a quick note, I said calmly, the synchronized music is on an FM station. You can only hear it if you turn to that station. So, unless someone is purposely listening. A few people chuckled. Laura glared. Roger flipped through the meeting packet. There's actually no current policy limiting synchronized music, Laura. Nor any specific color rules for lighting. But there should be, she insisted, her pearls bouncing as she spoke. I agree, said a voice from the back. It was Mr. Whitmore, 78. Notorious for hating everything since 2002. Laura's face lit up, finally, someone in her corner. Because her lights make my wife smile too much. I'm suspicious. She's enjoying December more than our anniversary. The room erupted in laughter. Laura? Not amused. A few days later, something wild happened. My daughter had submitted my house to the local radio station's Holiday Home Magic Contest. I didn't even know. One afternoon, I got a call. Hi there. Is this the house on Pineberry Crest with the penguins and candy cane arches? Maybe. This is WKRP Radio. We're filming finalists this week for our Christmas segment. You're one of the top 3. I nearly dropped the phone. When I told my daughter, she beamed so wide I swear the garlands glowed. I didn't think they'd choose us, she whispered. Well, apparently, Laura's not the only one watching. That evening, Laura came by. Unannounced, of course. She didn't knock. Just stood at the edge of my lawn like a Disney villain surveying her kingdom. I saw the news truck today, she said, arms folded. Was that for you? I nodded, still holding a mug of cider. I'll be contacting the HOA. If you win this contest, it sets a terrible precedent. I blinked. A precedent for what? Cheer? She sniffed. For disorder. Then she leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. You may think the neighborhood is laughing with you. But they're not. They're laughing at you. I stared at her for a beat. Then I smiled. Well, I said, at least someone's laughing. She turned on her heel and marched away, muttering about bylaws and structural integrity. I watched her go. Biscuit the cat rubbed against my leg and let out a slow, satisfied purr. Because Laura had just overplayed her hand. The next day, I came home to find a handwritten card in my mailbox. Thank you for your lights. My husband passed last year, and for the first time since, I felt joy again. Please don't let anyone dim that. Margaret, Lot 22. I teared up. Then another envelope the next day. Can you share where you got the reindeer? My kids are obsessed. Ignore that lady across the street. She hates Halloween and Arbor Day. The street was waking up. People were coming by just to walk their kids past the house. Some brought cocoa. Some brought donations for a local food bank after seeing a small sign my daughter put up in front of the lights, bring joy, or a can of beans. Laura was furious. And when the local news truck finally showed up, she tried to block their camera with a copy of the HOA handbook. The news team filmed at sunset. Soft orange light blanketed the yard, casting a magical glow on the decorations. My daughter sat on the porch steps, wrapped in her red hoodie, smiling for the first time in weeks without exhaustion behind her eyes. They interviewed me for a quick segment. The reporter asked, "Why go so big this year?" I looked at my daughter, then into the camera. Because this year, we needed more light. The segment aired that night. And Laura? Well, she made a phone call. To code enforcement. To the HOA board. And to the mayor's office. Yes. The mayor. Because apparently, she really hated being upstaged. The morning after the news segment aired, my daughter and I were eating pancakes when I noticed something strange outside. My candy cane arches were gone. Not broken. Not fallen over. Gone. I walked out barefoot in my robe and stared at the blank patch of lawn. The snowman was still there. The penguins. The reindeer. But the candy cane walkway? Vanished. I scanned the neighborhood. Then my eyes landed on something. Across the street, inside Laura's garage, barely hidden behind two bins of tinsel and her artificial tree. Candy. Cane. Arches. My arches. I walked back into the house slowly and called Roger. Hey. I need to report a theft. You serious? Dead serious. Remember that security camera I installed? It caught everything. At 2:13 a.m., a shadowy figure in a fleece robe and clogs tiptoed across my lawn, flashlight in hand. She moved with the speed of someone both annoyed and determined. One by one, she lifted the candy cane arches out of the ground and lugged them across the street. I watched the footage with Roger on speaker. His sigh was deep. I'm gonna need to bring this to the board. And the police, I added. I mean, that's theft. You're not wrong. That afternoon, an officer knocked on Laura's door. I stayed inside and watched from the kitchen window as Laura emerged with a faint smile. It faded the moment she saw the officer holding a printed still from the security video. She tried to talk her way out of it. She waved her arms, pointed toward my house, then made the universal "they're harassing me" gesture, arms crossed, huffing dramatically. But the officer wasn't having it. 15 minutes later, she was told to return the decorations immediately and was issued a warning. That was the moment the neighborhood flipped. Because by dinner time, the security footage had made its way into our private Facebook group. And the comments were, savage. Caught red-candied. Who knew the Grinch wore clogs? Should we be worried about our lawn gnomes? Someone even made a meme of her silhouette with the caption, Pineberry's Most Wanted, the Great Candy Cane Heist. The very next day, something incredible happened. Almost every house on Pineberry Crest added more lights. Some added a string or two. Others put up reindeer made of pool noodles and duct tape. Susan installed a full snow projector on her garage. Mr. Whitmore, grumpiest man in the cul-de-sac, set out a plastic Santa with one middle finger raised. We all knew it was accidental, but still. It was a silent rebellion. And Laura? She finally cracked. She sent out a neighborhood-wide email titled, Subject, Urgent, Light Pollution and Lawsuit. Imminent. Dear neighbors. The visual chaos spreading through our street is both unsafe and unseemly. I am consulting with legal counsel regarding appropriate action. This madness must stop before someone is seriously inconvenienced. With deep disappointment. Laura M. Neighborhood Aesthetic Chair. The response was a reply all from Roger. Laura, you no longer hold that title. Please see the minutes from last month's board meeting. 2 nights before Christmas, a second news crew showed up. Apparently, our local story had gone viral. The station wanted to do a feel-good holiday follow-up, and this time, they interviewed my daughter. She stood under the penguin lights, still a bit pale but smiling as the reporter asked, Why do you think the neighborhood stood up like this? She said simply, because good people shine brighter together. The footage aired that night. Laura's house was barely visible in the shot, dimmed, undecorated, with the curtains drawn tight. At the next emergency HOA meeting, the board met with Roger presiding. We've received a formal complaint from Laura, he said, holding a very thick envelope. She is alleging light pollution, emotional distress, theft of neighborhood standards, and a mass conspiracy to dethrone her influence. Everyone burst into laughter. Roger raised a hand. We've also received 22 countersigned letters calling for a complete removal of Laura's privileges, including her ability to issue citations. Laura stood up, shaking. This is a personal attack. I have been nothing but a steward of this neighborhood. Susan raised her hand. Laura, you stole decorations from a cancer survivor's yard. Laura gasped. That's out of context. On video. Roger cleared his throat. Let's vote. All in favor of revoking Laura's authority under the HOA charter. Every hand went up. Laura turned red. She grabbed her binder and stormed out. We never saw the binder again. That night, I got a knock on my door. I braced myself. It was Margaret, from Lot 22. She held a gift box and said, the neighborhood took up a small collection. I opened the box. Inside was a hand-carved wooden sign that read, Pineberry's House of Light, official first place winner. I looked at her, stunned. But there wasn't a contest. She smiled. There is now. Christmas morning arrived quietly, softly. The sky over Pineberry Crest was a gentle blue, and for once, there wasn't a single urgent memo on anyone's doorstep. My daughter and I sat on the porch, wrapped in thick scarves, mugs in hand, watching the sun rise over a neighborhood transformed. The candy cane arches had been returned, intact, albeit a little bent, and I left them exactly as they were. A bit imperfect. A little tilted. But still standing. Sort of like us. A few houses down, Susan had placed a giant inflatable snow globe in her yard. Inside, a penguin waved endlessly. Across the street, even Mr. Whitmore had added a flickering string of blue icicles, his wife's favorite. Joy was everywhere. And Laura? Her house was dark. The official HOA newsletter came out on December 27th. Roger had worked overtime to make it, and it showed. On page 2 was a special section titled Recognizing Community Spirit, the Pineberry Crest Holiday Award. Beneath it, a photo of my daughter and me, standing in front of the house lit in full glory, arms around each other, with Biscuit the cat mid-yawn at our feet. The write-up said, in celebration of kindness, creativity, and connection, Lot 14 has been unanimously selected by the community as this year's holiday spirit champion. Thank you for showing us that joy, even when threatened, can shine brighter than fear. It was signed, the HOA board, with help from your neighbors. Folded into the back of the newsletter was another note. Effective immediately, all future citation authority must be approved by at least 3 board members. One person may no longer speak. For all. No name mentioned, but we all knew. The day before New Year's Eve, a small box appeared on my porch. No name. No card. Just neatly wrapped in silver paper. Inside, a broken bulb from one of my candy cane arches, and a single peppermint. I blinked. I didn't need to ask who sent it. It was the closest thing Laura had ever come to an apology. I left it on the porch. The final showdown wasn't a scene, it was silence. No more threats. No more citations. Laura stopped attending HOA meetings. She still walked her dog, whose name, it turned out, was Geraldine, and she still wore her cardigan robe hybrids. But she never looked anyone in the eye again. That is, until one crisp January morning. I was walking Biscuit in his little sweater when Laura passed by with Geraldine. I braced myself. But instead of a glare, she offered a single nod. It wasn't warmth. It wasn't reconciliation. But it wasn't war. That was enough. Life moved on. Spring bloomed, and the neighborhood stayed kinder. People smiled. More. New families moved in. And somewhere along the line, a new tradition was born. Every December, without fail, the houses of Pineberry Crest now light up in what can only be described as suburban Christmas chaos. Lights. Inflatables. Projections. Giant candy canes. Even Mr. Whitmore invests in a new decoration each year. And at the heart of it all? Lot 14. With a small wooden sign planted proudly in the yard. The house that made Laura blink. Because yes, Laura did eventually put up one decoration. A single white wreath. Hung slightly crooked. But hey, progress. It's funny how some people spend their whole lives trying to control others, to police their joy, shrink their sparkle, dim their light. But all it takes is one moment of quiet courage, one person refusing to shrink back, and suddenly the neighborhood changes. Not because of anger, but because of joy. Joy that refuses to apologize. Joy that shows up anyway. Joy with candy canes and a cat named Biscuit. And wouldn't you know it? Last week, the HOA announced the theme for next year's holiday contest. Bigger, brighter, bolder. Laura's name was listed, under decorations committee. Yeah. You can't make this stuff up. But hey. At least she didn't steal the goat this time.